Assemblyman Ken Blankenbush on the line right now. Good morning, Assemblyman.
Good morning. I'm glad you gave Larry the $200.
I think we had to come up with Elliot there. That was pretty good.
We would have also taken Easy-E. That was what they used to.
What was client
number 9?
Client number 9. We would have accepted that answer too. All right. Well, listen, Assemblyman.
Good morning.
Good morning. You were there for the State of the State, and what's your? It's a lot of cotton candy out there, and I don't know how we're going to pay for all that cotton candy.
Yeah. Well, I really over the years I really don't like State of the State because the governor stands up there, talks a lot more. It's more talk than less substance. He goes on about all the things that he's accomplished, and he talks about things that he wants to accomplish. He never talks about how we're going to afford it, how we're going to pay for it. Never really digs into exactly what he's going to propose in any kind of bills. And never.
Right.
So it's sort of like a rant that he does, and obviously when he comes out with his budget at the end of the month, we'll probably take a look and see where he's going on and how he's going to spend the money to do that.
Yeah. I got the feeling watching it yesterday that he's been dealt some difficult cards here. There's a $6 billion deficit we're looking at, two of which is money from the feds that we're not going to see. What do? You got to have a positive approach to this. What do you say when you're facing down $6 billion?
Well, yeah, and of course the comptroller's office, of course, is the one that's coming across with that. But one of the problems is, his whole discussion towards sections of that was to blame D.C., blame Washington, blame Trump, blame everybody. But you've got to realize we in Albany have put our state in that predicament.
Yeah.
I mean, we are a high-taxed, high-regulated state. He talks about the blue states, the red states. And so my impression of all of that is, we went into 2011 with a $10 billion deficit, and we had a cut. We had to cut spending. We had to do some of the things that weren't popular to get us back on track.
Yeah.
We're going to have to take a look at that kind of stuff to do that. But suing the state, the federal government, I mean, when he talks about that, my question is, how does that make New York State better for the people that live in the state of New York?
Yeah.
How are we going to sue the federal government? And if you think about it, we're suing the federal government because we put New York in the situation that it's in. So the tax program that's going to cross the United States that most people are going to get a tax break on, we're looking at not such a great tax break because we're in one of those states like New Jersey, Illinois, California, that's in a high-tax state. Now, the other thing I want to hit on that is that I've talked to several CPAs. They're indicating to me that anybody north of the Thruway, and I don't know where they got this from, anybody north of the Thruway is going to be in a better situation than the rest of the state of New York. When you look at my taxes where I live, the $10,000 cap, I don't reach the $10,000 cap like many of the people, and I do. And then you take a look at some of my districts. Most of them, a great many of them, don't itemize.
Right.
So when you double the standard, deduction, they're going to get a tax break. So not all of the state of New York is going to be hurt.
I wonder, Assemblyman, if what we're seeing here is, and it's not just the governor, but Democrats in general are portraying this as, and this is the double-edged sword. The Democrats are portraying this as doom and gloom, but disastrous. So you wonder, is it going to end up being that bad? Are they raising the expectations of people? And when it isn't that bad, that's going to hurt them. On the other hand, Republicans are claiming this to be one of the greatest. Actually, the president said this is the greatest tax cut in the history of the world. So I wonder if we're a little overpromising there, and it's probably going to fall somewhere in between, I would assume.
I would agree with you. I think one of the things that the governor has tried to do yesterday was really preach doom and gloom, just like Nancy Pelosi, just like Chuck Schumer, just like all of them have said that. And saying that is, I think you're right. I think it's to the point where down the road, if things aren't as bad as what it comes out to be, the governor's going to turn around and say, "Look, we fought back, we did this, and we did that, and it's not as it's because of his administration that he pulled this out." I think that's, first of all, there's not any Democrat wants Trump to be successful.
Right.
So let's face that. I mean, he's been getting nailed on that. Here's the other thing. In his State of the State, he talked about economic growth. Well, I read a little over 1 million people, a million residents in the state of New York over the last 7 years have left the state of New York. In 2016, I think we were the third largest, New Jersey and Illinois, and then New York, for the people that are bailing out of the state of New York. Now, why do you think that is?
Yeah.
I think it's because of all the, of all the regulations, of all the taxing that has happened in our state. We're losing people. We're not only that, we're going to be looking at losing a congressional seat, possibly two, maybe, when we do the next,
when the census comes up. Tell me, Assemblyman, and I just want to add, to be fair, I will say that I thought he was far nicer to the legislators yesterday than I had ever seen. He didn't take all the credit. And part of that is because there's a $6 billion deficit. He'd like to share the wealth there, share the credit a little bit. The other thing is there's got to be, some of the things he talked about I think are positive. I don't know how we pay for them, but what are things that he said yesterday, to be fair, that you agree with?
Well, let's look at how do we stop the opiate addiction. I mean, he mentioned that. Bipartisan support on stuff like that. We look about student loans, another one. Our student loans are going higher and higher, and how do we take that? How do we get that down? I think those are things that Republicans and Democrats can sit down and take a look at in their state of New York that we could work together on. Those are two of the things that just come to the top of my mind, but
all right.
Those are things that I think we could work on. He was much nicer to the legislators than he was last year, because he never even did the State of the State last year.
Right, it was a tour, right?
But you know what? If you listen to some of his rhetoric, though, he was pushing back on our counties and our municipalities, sort of talking about their high property tax rates that our counties and our, he didn't say it exactly that way, but I got the inference that he was pushing back on our counties and our municipalities.
Right.
And when you talk about property taxes, you've got to talk about unfunded mandates that our state is pushing down on our local municipalities and counties. Bill, when I was the chairman of the Board of Legislators in Jefferson County, something like 85 or 86% of our budget was mandated.
Right.
And unfunded mandated. So that reflects in property taxes.
Did he say yesterday he was talking about free college for everyone in New York?
Yeah.
Yes, he did. There was a lot of, again, I call that stuff the cotton candy.
How are you going to pay for it?
How do you pay for it? That's the big question. So, all right, Assemblyman, I appreciate your time this morning. And I guess we won't know anything until we see what his budget looks like.
Well, we might want to talk about that when the budget comes out.
Yeah, let's do it again. I appreciate taking the time this morning.
No, no problem. Have a good one.
Assemblyman Ken Blankenbush handles the North Country and parts of Rome. And in that area, we'll take a quick break and right back at WIBX.